You're listening to The Afternoon on Q101 Merritt's Music Mix. My name's Jesse Paculat, and I'm joined by another Jesse right now, Jesse Toso. How's it going, man?
Good. How you doing?
Good. You're one of the performers this weekend in the Logger Show.
Yeah, that's right. We'll be chainsaw carving for 3 days straight.
Yeah, okay, so how does it work right now? So you'll be carving all weekend, different sculptures and stuff?
We'll be carving one main carving and then a couple quick carves, smaller carves to give away or sell it to the audience, yeah.
What's the deal with the big one then? Is that going to be sold as well?
I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen with it, but they're part of a competition. So we're actually competing with the other carvers to take home some prize money.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So what's your record like in these carving competitions? You have a pretty good one?
Well, I've been doing it for about 12 years. I've won a lot of like amateur and semi-professional categories. And actually last year was my first year I placed in a professional category up in Campbell River. So it's hit or miss. It's challenging because there's a lot of good carvers in this province.
Plus, I guess in the end, it really just depends on the judges.
Yeah, it often is totally up to them. Well, it is always totally up to them.
Well, maybe you can help us out, like what are some unbiased things that they can look for in a carving?
Well, there's quite a few elements. I mean, you can generally tell the skill level of the carver by just the overall finish. There's the composition. They're like finishing overcuts. You know, if you have a lot of overcuts, that's generally regarded as pretty bad. Yeah, it's so subjective, but it's a challenging job for a judge. I'd never want to be a judge at one of these because judging art is so challenging.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah,
I guess another thing that comes into it is the difficulty of the sculpture itself.
Yeah, I like the complexity. Like some people like to take pieces off and add them on, so they take on full three-dimensional qualities, and so all the joints have to be perfect and then the detailing, all the details, like and proportions. If you're doing human anatomy, it's really important to get everything like bang on. It really looks odd if things are not quite right. So there's a lot of that type of stuff, and just like the reality of carving. Often, like if you're trying to depict an eagle, it should look like an eagle. That type of stuff.
Right.
Yeah, but it's really cool to see all the different techniques people use, all the different carvers, and it's just a great time to get together with other carvers and see how they work and work alongside them. It's always a learning experience.
As far as what you're going to be doing this weekend, do you guys generally keep it a surprise, or are you allowed to talk about it and what we can expect you to be carving this weekend?
Yeah, I generally like to keep it under cover just because I could change my mind at the last minute. It's often for me, the log will dictate what I'm going to carve. I mean, I've got an idea in the back of my head, but I haven't seen what we have to work with quite yet. So I'm hoping it'll work. But if it doesn't, I've got some backup plans. And so I generally don't like to tell people until I'm right there and I know. Because if I say one thing and then they come to expect to see it, and then I've changed my mind, then it's kind of a letdown. But
Oh, okay. So you don't, like sometimes the actual log itself that you'll be working with, that changes from time to time. It's not just like a set piece that always looks the same.
Exactly. Sometimes we'll get really big logs, sometimes small ones. Some will have curves in them. Some might have big knots. Like it really depends. I mean, I think generally competitions are pretty good at keeping the logs fairly similar, so it shouldn't matter too much. But you never know. Sometimes there's things you have to deal with that you can't foresee.
Okay, so I guess that has happened with you then. You come into a competition thinking that you're going to do one thing, and perhaps just the shape of the log kind of steers you into a different direction?
Yeah, exactly. It's, I mean, generally I've been pretty good, but I've shown up to competitions thinking and planning I've been doing one carving, and then finding out, oh no, we actually have this, whatever, that, something changes, and it's like, okay, well, I guess I'm doing this, and I'll change it up, and I'll go home and redraw my draft and figure it out, and then next morning I'll start it up and see what I can do.
Talking with Jesse Toso today. One of the performers that you'll be seeing this weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at the Logger Show right here in Merritt. Jesse, how did you discover that you originally wanted to be an artist, and when did it come about that you got into carving and sculpting?
Yeah, I've always been an artist, like just small carvings and drawing and stuff. But then in Campbell River, where I grew up, they have a competition, and I've been watching them for years. And then I thought, you know what, I can do this. And so I'd never used a chainsaw before, and I picked it up, and I thought, I'm going to try this. I entered in the amateur category, and I won. I won first prize and some money. So I was like, this is awesome. And that was 12 years ago, and I haven't looked back.
The first time you ever picked up a chainsaw, it was resulted by winning the competition?
Yeah.
That's pretty incredible, man. You're a natural with the chainsaw then, huh?
Granted, it was in the amateur category, but I was still pretty happy.
Right. Well, yeah, it still takes some work to beat many other people.
Yeah. And I learned a lot about chainsaws.
I used to do a lot of art myself, graffiti back in the day, so I guess that has something to do with it as well. We could spend money on a certain brand of paint, certain things that help us paint better, like different caps and stuff. Is that the same thing with carving? Do they have chainsaws specifically for art carvers?
Absolutely. It's becoming a pretty big part of the industry. There's some carving chainsaws, carving bars. That's actually pretty interesting, with the bar on the chainsaw itself has a small tip, and sometimes they're only like 8 inches long, like really tiny. Really small detail work. So that's definitely a bonus, having tools. And then there's a whole bunch of other carving tools that are available now, and it's pretty cool. It's pretty neat to see. But that being said, it's pretty great how much you can get done with just a regular chainsaw with a regular bar.
What's the biggest sculpture you've done so far?
That's a good question. Probably I've done a 16-foot spider, and it's attached to the side of a building in Campbell River. That was fairly big.
So you said 16 feet. Was that sort of like all one piece of wood?
It originally was, but then I cut it into all the different legs. So there's a body, and then, of course, all the 8 legs. And from tip to tip from the legs is about 15, 16 feet. So it's quite massive. But then I've also done large, like one-piece things. I've done a couple salmon down over in Port Alberni. I've done these huge salmon. I think they were about 15 feet tall. I did 2, and they're made into a bench.
Another thing that we are looking forward to this weekend, you mentioned how you're doing the big sculpture, and you mentioned the quick sculpture. So every day you also have a 1-hour time limit to come up with something.
Yeah, exactly. And those are fun. Those are actually really good spectator, something to come to check out, because all the carvers will be carving for 1 hour, start to finish, and we'll all end up with something, pretty unique. But it's quite amazing to see what we can do in 1 hour.
With those 1-hour time limits, do you also come in with an idea, or do you do some improv?
A little bit of both. Sometimes, there's some things that I've done over the years that I'm confident I can just nail out a quick bear, for instance, in an hour. I can carve a little bear, and I'm pretty confident with that. But then once in a while, it's like, you know what, I want to try something new, and I'll try, and again, it might depend on the piece of wood that I'm given for the quick cards. Obviously, they're smaller, so, some of them might have a little bit more interesting features and whatnot to work with. But yeah, again, you work with what you get. So it's exciting.
Has it ever happened where you knowingly or on purpose went into a piece of wood without any idea just to see what you could come up with off the top of your head?
Yeah, I've done that. Abstract is actually kind of cool for that. Like just looking at the wood and exploring all the different grain and whatnot. That's really what I love about carving, is just looking at the wood and the grain. And for me, the subject matter, the end result is kind of secondary. It's really about exposing the beauty of the wood for me.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that's an interesting take on it too.
Yeah, it's interesting. I tend to do a lot of curvy and like natural pieces, like octopus and fish or whatever that have like smooth curves. I really enjoy that.
Yeah, that would definitely take some time, eh? If you're got those curves going in there, that has a lot of sanding and stuff at the end.
Yeah, it's mostly sanding actually. 1/3 carving, 2/3 sanding.
Jesse Toso, you'll see him this weekend perform at the Logger Show. If people want to discover more about you before they see you this weekend, where can they go?
Check it out at stumpartist.com. I've got a website there, and also tosowoodworks.com. I've got a side company, or it's actually my main company, selling furniture and stuff, but basically big chunks of wood.
And that's where you can discover more of Jesse Toso before you see him this weekend perform over at the Logger Show. Thanks so much, Jesse, for joining us today.
Right on. You're welcome, and thank you, and we'll see you this weekend.
Jesse Toso Carver, you'll see him perform this weekend over at the Logger Show right here in Merritt. To find out more about Jesse, you can head over to tosowoodworks.com or stumpartist.com.